South African public servants are likely to accept the government's latest 7.5% wage increase offer. The unions, which had demanded an 8% wage increase, embarked on a mandate-seeking process that ended on Friday after the state had raised its offer. Reuben Maleka of the Public Servants Association indicated on Monday that preliminary results show members are accepting the 7.5% offer. He said the unions concerned, including SATU, Napotsa, SATU and OSPASA, would likely wrap up the process by ending that process this week. And according to him, the signing of a wage agreement would allow the 7.5% pay hike to be implemented on April 1. Maleka further explained that the proposal includes a pensionable cash gratuity, adding that a separate agreement was being negotiated on housing allowances, while medical insurance was not part of the current round of talks. 7.5% wage offer is set to increase the 690 billion rand compensation spending by the state to more than 741 billion rand, thereby raising concerns about the government's fiscal consolidation efforts, as the Treasury had penciled in an average annual growth rate of 1.6% in government employee salaries for 2023 down to 2024. So this morning, joining me from South Africa is the Acting Assistant General Manager, Public Servants Association, Claude Naiker. Thank you so much, Claude, for joining the conversation.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
So to put this discussion in proper perspective, how often do government workers in South Africa get a pay rise, and what are the metrics involved in determining the rise?
Yeah, there's a number of factors involved, but predominantly the trend of how increases were given in the previous years. More importantly, generally we use the yardstick of the inflation rate and determine our salary increases as well. As you quite rightly pointed out, government has offered a revised offer of 7.5%. It's a multi-term agreement, meaning a 2-year agreement. In the first year, what will consist of the agreement is a 7.5% average pensionable salary increase. And in the second year, government has indicated that they will target a increase at the projected CPI, meaning the consumer price inflation. However, there's a slight proviso to that second year term. In the event that the inflation rate goes beyond 6.5%, the salary increase will be capped at 6.5%. In the event that it drops below 4.5%, then the salary increase will be deemed 4.5%. If the projected CPI is anywhere between 4.5 and 6.5, then that will be the figure that public servants will expect a salary increase. It's a 2-year term. As far as the PSA is concerned, we concluded our mandating process as late as yesterday. Majority of the members that have voted have supported the 7.5%. So what will entail going forward is that the unions that you've mentioned, together with the PSA, a special bargaining council meeting will be held where we will sign off on the agreement, and hopefully that the employer can implement it with effect from 1st of April. That is a admin process that needs to be concluded because most public servants would expect that their salary increase would be in the pay packet come 15th of April this year.
All right, now that meetings and deliberations are ongoing between the unions involved and the PSA, I'd like you to just walk us through the demands that have been tabled, culminating to now that some sort of agreement is to be reached, and how welcoming this 7.5% would mean or would be for the unions or members of the union, as the case may be.
Yeah, what had happened was that 2 years ago, we agreed on what we call a cash allowance, because at the onset of COVID, things were bad economically, things were bad. Government did not offer the traditional percentage salary increase, but rather offered a cash allowance. Now, this cash allowance continued for 2 years, which was in 2021 and 2022. This year, what will happen is that we'll revert to the normal traditional percentage increase, where the cash allowance will be converted into a pensionable salary increase. Now, what does that entail? Previously, the cash allowance was just a once-off cash amount every month. Now that cash allowance will be incorporated into one's basic salary, which entails that a portion of that salary increase will go towards the members' pension savings. So this will actively contribute to the savings when one has to retire. In addition to that, which equates to 4.2%, the government has added a further 3.3% salary increase. So the 4.2% cash allowance, which is converted to a pensionable salary increase, plus the 3.3% gives you a total of 7.5%. So that's what public servants can expect across the board as an average pensionable increase come 1st of April this year. We've decided to concentrate this year solely on the cash allowance,
Hello, Claude.
Cash allowance comes to an end on 31st of March, 2023.
All right, now we understand that with all these percentages and the allocation, so to speak, that these wages account for about a third of government expenditure in South Africa. And one of the concerns of the National Treasury is to see how that can be kept in check, because it's not just all about increasing the wages, it's all about ensuring that it does not tear down the pulse of the government. So how healthy is this, and how do you think the South African government will be able to sustain on maintaining this increase, this particular percentage in terms of payments?
Yeah, I think when we negotiate, we're very cognizant and aware of the economic situation of the country. In fact, throughout the world, economically, countries are suffering. But if you will remember, there's one serious concern to all public sector unions in South Africa, is that there's been generally a moratorium on the filling of vacant posts in the public sector. So every sector of the public service in South Africa, especially health, and in the police services, there's a dire shortage of personnel, a dire shortage of men on the street to try and assist delivery to ordinary citizens. So government would have realized some savings in that respect, and that would have obviously supplemented the salary increase. But if one has to look whether posts have been full, I don't think so. And we get into a situation where the government service is in dire need of manpower. There's a critical shortage. There's a high rate of vacancies. I think coupled with that as well, government needs to ensure that maladministration, corrupt activities need to be brought to a halt immediately. I think that is also looting the coffers of the state. And if that can be eradicated, I'm sure there could be realized a lot of savings that could help towards filling vacant posts in the public service, addressing infrastructure needs of government departments and the infrastructure of the country as a whole. So I think for us as the PSA, we're calling on government to seriously consider eradicating the maladministration and the looting of state coffers as such.
All right, aside the issue of corruption, deal with corruption and all whatnots, we understand that South Africa has huge potential in terms of its economy. And judging by this, increasing the salary of public servants, workers from grade 1 to 12 at the percentage rate of 7% would go up about 35.8 billion rand. So aside having to deal with corruption, which areas do you think that the South African government can look towards in terms of getting enough revenue to finance what it needs to pay to its workers?
There's quite a number of areas. I think procurement issues in government, we've seen it in the past, supply chain management, where there's a total, disregard for procurement aspects, which then leads to government paying exorbitant prices for things that they would normally place at the normal prices. I think throughout the public sector, we've seen problems in this area, key areas where government overspending on those areas. I think if we could tighten the belt on those areas, we could realize a lot of savings in that areas. I think one of the critical areas, recently the Public Service Commission has indicated in the report that there are a number of public servants that are suspended and still collecting their salaries. That's another area I think the government can look at critically, that before suspending an employee, they need to think carefully because you're not deriving any benefit or productivity from these employees. by them simply sitting at home. But it's not their fault. It's government hastily suspending civil servants and not doing a thorough investigation before they actually contemplate trying to suspend these civil servants. I think two critical areas that we can think of at the top of our head that government can consider realizing a lot of savings. And as I said, the looting and then the maladministration, it takes up a lot of the government's resources, money, time spent on investigations. So it's an ongoing process that needs to be stopped immediately, and urgent attention needs to be given to that aspect.
So, should one of the things that you think the South African government should put a stop to is the social welfareism payment package that has been given to vulnerables or indigents in the country? Because we know that that has also been a part of government spending over time, most especially during the time of the pandemic, to ease the sufferings of some South Africans who are going through the pang of the pandemic. So, do you think that the South African government should also put a stop to that, or you feel it can continue with that particular package?
I think the social relief grant that you're referring to is a mere 350 Rand that's given to the most vulnerable in our society. At the onset of COVID, a lot of businesses were forced to shut, and a lot of employees were left jobless, and we're seeing the trend continue. The unemployment rate in South Africa is also continuing to be a major concern. And the longer that the unemployment situation continues in our country, we're going to have a lot more people relying on social grants. I think if we address the unemployment situation, obviously there is going to be a drop in citizens of the country relying on social relief grants, on social pensions and other forms of grants that are offered by the government. So I think people are forced to actually apply for these grants. I think the grants can be used in other areas to try and stimulate the economy. But if we're not getting any relief in other areas of the economy, unfortunately, the most vulnerable of our society have to rely on this 350. So I think that will continue for some time until government tries and improve in other areas, improving infrastructure, and obviously bringing down the unemployment rate in South Africa.
All right, so finally, before I let you go, Claude, we are still in the month of March, which has to do with the International Month for Women, where women are being celebrated. And now, looking at this new minimum or this new wage that will be coming into place, do you think it will be equitable for the male workers and, of course, the female workers in South Africa?
Well, the good thing about the wage increase is that it's applied across the board, and it doesn't discriminate against any employee as such, be it a female or a male. So in that aspect, it's a positive sign. The public service currently in South Africa, from the last statistics that I have knowledge of, is that we employ more women in the public sector than men. So the fact that we're granting a livable salary increase, not an ideal situation, but a livable salary increase, I think this will go a lot to alleviate a lot of women that are sole breadwinners, single breadwinners in their family, and some of them obviously support extended families as well. So I think in that aspect, I think it's a step in the right direction as far as women are concerned.
All right, thank you so much, Claude. Well, I guess that everything is now binding on the unions, but then it seems as though it is tilting towards some sort of acceptance. But of course, just as you've mentioned, some critical areas that you feel the government should look into, sustenance is key in terms of this hike in wage bills. Thank you so much, Claude, for joining the conversation.
Thank you.
Now, if the unions eventually agree to 7.5% salary increments, the move could potentially improve the quality of public services and, of course, boost the morale of government workers who have been struggling with inflation and economic hardships for quite a while. Well, it is hoped that these decisions will help to strengthen the relationship between the government and its employees, and of course contributes to the overall development of South Africa's economy. That is our conclusion on today's edition of Business Edge for today. You can look at our social media platforms at News Central TV. Head on to our website www.newscentral.africa and download our mobile app on App Store and Play Store. Thank you so much for being part of our conversation. My name is Lekan Onabanjo. At the top of the hour, we will be bringing you the news. Do not go away.